Hello everybody, welcome to Trail Talk, Leg 1, and I'll be using the AWOL's guide here, AT guide, 2016 northbound. That's what I used for my thru hike attempt. For those who are new to my channel, I went 931 miles before I had to get off for some medical reasons in 2016, and then started up in April 2017 with the idea of flip-flopping, and got about 450 miles up into New York before I had an injury that took me off the trail. So anyway, the basis for this will be the guide. Now, realizing that somewhere in the southern part another 0.6 got added to the trail in 2017, won't worry so much about that, because this is more of an exercise in kind of more of like a logistics planning, if you will. All right, I did the approach trail minus the falls. So instead of the 8.8, I did a 7.8, if you will, because we parked up at the top of the falls, and it was so late in the day that we wanted to head up, and we were expecting rain and 41 degrees, and we ended up in a blizzard. And I think I've talked to you a little bit about that before. A lot of places in the AWOL guide, these increments are 500 feet. You'll notice these are 1,000. So starting F down here, ending up at Springer, you're looking at about a 2,000 foot climb. I would not do the approach trail again for the purpose of starting my Appalachian Trail Thru Hike. 20% of the people quit by the time they get to Neal's Gap. All I did was make it harder on myself psychologically by doing this. We ended up, because it was we had the snow that started, we ended up not making it. My son and I, we ended up staying here at Black Gap Shelter with about 6 to 8 inches of snow on the ground. People had set up their tents inside the shelter. We were hammocking, so we ended up not hammocking and crowded ourselves into the shelter, and I was so discouraged that I almost quit. So for me, psychologically, and I was like everybody else, hey, I'm getting ready to hike 2,189 miles, what's another 8.8? Well, it almost made you quit. So yeah, that was a big deal. So if you want to do the approach trail but you don't want to kill yourself, there's also there's a green blaze, a lime green blaze that you can take, which the park ranger tried to tell me was the better way to go. Okay, but i.e. this Linfoot trail here, I think it leads from here to here. It's not the AT, so what really would it have mattered? I should have listened to her and taken the hint. But no, I was prideful. I was going to do the approach trail, air quotes here. So anyway, the next day so that was day one for me. So when I say it took me 5 days to get to Neal's Gap, actually 4 days of the trail, and it really is 3.5, I guess, in a way. But I count this the approach trail as kind of my day one. If you look at the trail here, I mean, once you get that climb, and once you get hiking the AT and you see this profile, it's not that bad, except they are 1,000 foot increments still. Between these are 1,000 foot elevation changes. Later on in the trail, it's 500 through a lot of Virginia. So it's a little bit deceptive. I mean, these are pretty good climbs. The first the first night I stayed at Black Gap. The second night I stayed here at this Hawk Mountain campsites. My goal was to get to the Hawk Mountain shelter. These are my goals that I did in my pre-planning, those little dots. But a very persuasive trail runner talked me into staying here at the campsites. The water source was at the end of a long trail. The campsites are 0.2. It is probably another 0.3 down to the water. So it's a little ways to go get the water. And that night I had a lot of snow and gear slipping down, and I'm going to pause here because I'm going to insert a picture of that for you. Okay, The first big challenge, and everybody talks about, is this Sassafras Gap. All right, Sassafras Mountain here. Okay, and that was the big psychological one. My friend Brett even was telling me about it. You know, eventually you can look back on it and go, what was the big deal about that? But Sassafras Mountain, that was one of the big psychological hurdles to get over. And then coming down, that's where I experienced my first fall. That's where I started learning that if, you know, long flat rocks, a little bit of water on them is bad, especially when it was kind of like close to freezing, a little bit of ice on it still, and I could have really gotten hurt coming down. And then of course back up Justice Mountain, and then Justice Creek. I stayed my second night, so that was a 7-mile day. I stopped there a little bit early instead of going onto the Gooch, which was my plan. See, my little plan mark here. Because by the time I got there, I had good water source. There were some nice people setting up camp. One of them had a fire going already, and it just felt like I wanted to be around some nice people and a nice fire. So I met my first female solo hiker, 18-year-old. And never learned her trail name, but she did make contact with me after I got back, and she thanked me for teaching her how to bear rope and hang the bear bag, and that night, and she went on to summit. So she ended up hiking the trail solo, and she ended up finishing it. So that was kind of neat, because my friend Brett told me that about by now I probably will have met somebody who will finish the trail, and sure enough, she finished the trail. If you need to get off, there is a way to get off here. You can go into the Sushits if you need to do a resupply, or if things aren't going well, or if you get hurt. There is a way to get off pretty easily. You know, there's these gaps here. Okay. Any of these gaps with these Forest Service roads, there's ways of calling for help and getting off if you need to. Okay. All right. So this is night number 2 here then at Justice Creek. All right. Then you've got this ascent to Blood Mountain. Day 2, I smell this woody gap. Coming up at a woody gap, that climb right there, just a little bit of a blur, but that was a real struggle, and it was on a Sunday, and there were so many day hikers it was hard to even walk it. But then by the time they summited, they're all going back to the car, and then it was pretty easy to walk down. I stayed down here at Lance Creek, second night that I stayed with that young lady. I never saw her again after that. She just had a little bit longer stride than I did, and was able to put more distance. So that was that's the third night camping. Second night on the AT was at Lance Creek, and once again that was a plan. So at least I got to my plan. So that day I hiked my plan plus a little bit more, since I'd stopped earlier at Justice Creek. Now, the reason I did that is because it was past 1 March, and you have to have a bear canister to basically stay basically past here, okay, up through Blood Mountain. I didn't want to carry a bear canister, so I stopped a little bit early there at the Lance Creek, and it wasn't necessarily too early that day to stop. And then this is my second day coming back down into Neal's Gap. The significant thing here about Blood Mountain, I didn't think it was that bad climbing up, but coming down is where I got hurt. I really hurt my knee. Some of the steps were waist high trying to get down, and I really pounded myself pretty hard. Plus my pack was super heavy, so that was kind of my wake up call. I ended up doing a 00 here at Neal's. Not a 00. I ended up doing a 0 here at Neal's Gap. To stay for 2 nights at the cabins that are there, so that I could ice up my knee and get my courage up and start hanging out again. So in most of the literature you read, whether it's on white blazes, or if everybody says, send yourself a resupply box here to Neal's Gap. Well, I mean, they're one of the best outfitters on the trail. You know, I switched over to my tent there. I looked it up on Amazon, and it was the same price on Amazon as it was they were selling it there for. So they weren't trying to gouge me or anything like that. You can send gear home, and I sent a bunch of gear home that I hadn't used yet. I figured if I hadn't used it by the time I got there, I didn't need it. And so I shook a lot of weight off my pack here at Neal's Gap. But they don't have a really great resupply. And you might ask yourself why. Now, this is only speculation on my part, but if 20% of the people are jumping off the trail here, there probably tends to be a lot of stuff left in hiker boxes. Now, and that's true. I mean, I threw a share of my stuff because some of the stuff that I got in my resupply box, I decided I didn't want, and so I threw it in the hiker boxes. So you have a lot of hiker box availability there. But do you really want to rely upon that? I think they don't carry a big kind of camp store type stuff, because they probably wouldn't sell it as much because people are digging in the hiker boxes. But then if you rely upon a hiker box to resupply, you're going to be sorely disappointed. I saw a lot of locals going through the boxes. I saw a shuttle driver, very famous shuttle driver, pull in and go into the cabin store there, the store at the cabins, and he went through the box and pulled some gear out of there. There were a lot of stuff that was like, where people had done their own dehydrating or their own, vacuum packing and stuff like that, and there were, little pizzas with pepperoni and cheese that were vacuum packed, and you don't know how sanitary the person was when they packaged it up. You don't know how long it's been unrefrigerated, even though it's been vacuum packed, and you're probably going to be playing a dangerous game of roulette with food poisoning. And a lot of the stuff I think that gets left in the hiker box is there. So this is your first recommended resupply by mail, and I think it was $5 is what they charged me to pick up my box, and it was kind of they called it more of a donation than anything else, but I think it was money well spent. So this is your first resupply, and it's done by resupply box here at Neal's Gap, and that is leg one. It was really neat to get up on top of Blood Mountain and have the views. There was a real sense of accomplishment there to see the oldest shelter on the trail. This tells you when it's built. This is 9.1 miles to the next shelter, 1.2 miles back. See, 1.2 miles back here, 1.2 miles forward. 12.3 back. So you got mileage distances here. It tells you if you got, this is a privy, this is an unreliable water source. They have campsites, and there's a shelter that'll fit 7 people. Okay, Blood Mountain here, according to this, will fit 8 people. Notice there's no water supply. There's a privy and vistas. Okay, some of the things you need to keep track of. Not to skip ahead, but I will just a little bit since I'm thinking about it. When we came out of Neal's Gap that first night out, me and Clark, we were going to go to the Whitney Gap shelter because, hey, that's like, that seemed like a good place to go, right? It's got water, it's got tent sites and everything. Well, guess what? One thing we didn't notice until almost too late, and this you start learning to pay attention to. This means it's 1.2 miles east of the AT. So that's roughly a 2.5 mile round trip to go to the shelter for water. Okay, so these are some of the things you also in your planning you need to pay attention to. Do you want to do that? Is it worth it to you to go that far off the trail? The worst I ever went was a half mile down a very long steep switchback, and I had to do it because I had no water. It's not fun to have to do those, so most people bypass this, and there's actually some campsites here at this trail intersection heading off there, right here. Campsites 0.1 east with a view, okay, just beyond So they actually give you a hint there. There's other places to stay. All right, Trail Talk number 1. This, in my planning processes, that tells me I needed 4 days. That was my resupply. I'd looked ahead and decided how much I needed. I had done this through the whole book. You know, I could just hear. I'll just randomly open this up here, and you'll see. Yeah. Here's Luray, Virginia. I needed 5 days. I did all this ahead of time. Okay. If I had to do it over again, I may just put, okay, Luray is a good place to resupply, but I don't know if I need 5, because if I'm hiking 30 miles a day, I may only need 2 days worth of food. But if I'm still back at 10 miles a day, I might need a lot more food than that. So I kind of stopped relying upon this number and just realized, okay, I had already checked this out. This is a good place to resupply. Okay, and ironically, now that I just pulled this up, this is where I got off the trail. Actually, I got off at pretty close to this. This is where I went in. I went into here for my hostel stay, and then that's why I determined I needed to go. The doctor said you need to come back home. So, but that's a pretty ironic that I just happened to reach in there and pull that up. All right, everybody. So hopefully you'll find this beneficial, and hopefully with each of the Q&As I'll throw in a trail talk. All right, everybody. See you later. Bye.